Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of February the 24th till March the 2nd, 2025. I am going to share the screen with you right away because this is going to be such a very active week. So this horoscope is going to be a little bit of everything all together. The reason why this week is going to feel very unlike most of what we had until now from 2025 is because there is a very strong energy reverse taking place. What does that mean? Well, on one hand, as we begin the week, Mars is standing still in the sky and preparing to go direct, and that's a big energy and a big effect on all of us because Mars is our drive. Mars is our to-do, willpower, determination, reaction, especially in the sign of Cancer. How we feel about territories, how we feel about how loved and nurtured we are, how we feel about family, karma, the past, belonging, home, house, mother, etc., etc. So Mars retrograde immediate, as in the end of Mars retrograde, is immediately gonna pull us into like a reversed inner state and activate certain nuances of our will, if that makes sense, that were dormant under this very prolonged Mars retrograde. So, and also, Mars is gonna slowly and surely pick up speed where he exits the sign of Cancer and enters into the sign of Leo on the 19th of April. So we're not really anything this week in a very progressive way in the larger Mars direct season, as in as Mars goes through its shadow path and exits it ultimately, we're still basically in a retrograde energy because we're going to be feeling the shadowy Mars. We're going to be feeling the agitated Mars. We're going to be feeling the Mars that is very, very reactive. So this week can also be relevant in a not so very nice way, especially on the world stage. Why? Territoriality and real estate, Cancer, people, where are the borders? I don't want to get into detail because you understand my allusions here. So it's going to be hot, it's going to be active, it's going to be boiling, it's going to be full of tension. Of course, there is a lot of good in the sky as well, but we cannot ignore that Mars going direct. So when it's standing still, very powerful, shadowy, it's really gonna boil up what is already there. And also within us as well, we may be very sensitive, we may feel very on the edge, we may feel very overwhelmed by something, but it is starting to go direct. So this is the moment when we are going to take action, when enough is enough, when we know what we need to do, when we have absolutely no doubt in our at least emotional world of what the right thing to do, or for us personally, or with the situation, with the partner, family, home, where I belong to, etc. So anything that goes with this, we know what we need to do, and we need. So Mars retrograde is preparing us to take action. So we're really going to be feeling this. Okay, this can feel quite as a usual, typical angry energy, passive angry energy, toxic energy, inner frustration, rage energy. The typical Mars in Cancer when it's very uncomfortable because Mars is in itself not a big fan of Cancer, not very comfortable there. And when it is stopped, Mars is the planet which needs dynamic, it goes and goes and it does its stuff. When it is stopped, Mars is one of those planets which really feels it the most, which really plays up maximally when it is standing still in any direction. Or, when Mars is out of bounds immediately. Anyway, that's something totally else. So we're gonna be feeling that. Fortunately, there is a lot of good here. Remember what I said, Mars retrograde really made us analyze something. I'm not gonna evoke the main themes of Cancer, again, you got my idea. And because it holds a trine both to Saturn and Mercury, now as it goes direct, especially on the 24th, is when it perfects its trine with Mercury. That's really good. We feel what we feel. We know what we know. We are ready for something. Of course, because this is still a bit of a retrograde energy. And also because Mercury, not yet, but it's going to go retrograde in the sign of Aries, retrograding back into Pisces. So Mercury has unfinished business in Pisces still. So this might be delayed gratification. Whatever good, nice, your decision, right? Mars, taking action. It may need Mercury retrograde season. So let me just mention the dates real quickly. Mercury retrograde starts on March 14th and lasts until April the 7th. So this might be a period when whatever Mars retrograde, but by then direct, had us cook up inside ourselves, whatever this Saturn does to Mars. I'm sure of something. My feeling is right. I know my truth. I know my faith. I know what my, soul, my heart, my emotions, my morality, Pisces tells me. I know what I feel. I am certain of my emotions. This is all. Mars retrograde could have also been a very, very powerful energy which took a lot of people back to their family karma, family discussions, partners. Are we a couple, a family? What are we to one another? So all of this was very packed into Mars retrograde season. But now, decision time, now action time, now I'm sure of something. So this is why the trine to Saturn, the sure factor. For example, yes, this is a powerful emotional energy. It is much more emotion than anything else, but it is also unconscious emotion, and it's a trine, so of course it is something flowy, something ultimately positive, especially with Saturn trine positive. And that's exactly what I want to say here. It can affect physical reality. I'm sure I want to invest. I'm sure I found my home I want to buy. I'm sure I want to sell my home. I'm sure I want a divorce. I'm sure I am not something. I am sure I am something. I am sure I'm ready to a bigger dream, a different dream, a better dream, dreaming myself differently. Why? Because as March starts, at the very mid-March, we have a powerful total lunar eclipse in Virgo. Oh boy, it's gonna be a big energy, that one. Big. So a lunar eclipse is a culmination, a termination, a reset. Something reached its very end and bye-bye. And Virgo especially, how should I say, all about elimination, right? The gut. Virgo rules the digestive tract. Well, the end result will be elimination, right? So it's gonna be eliminated. Things are gonna be eliminated. And we must also remember this eclipse is very close to the nodes. South node in Virgo in itself, even without the moon yet, even without the express eclipse phenomenon, is all about releasing, letting go, detox, what simply no longer serves you, what doesn't make sense in your life, what is authentically not resonant to the inner animal also that is you, the gut, like allergies, how allergies work in medicine, but those allergies work in politics, sociology, education, in any field of our human life. The same principle as energies. When something outlived its purpose or you're sensitive to it, it doesn't matter the reason. You stop. You stop eating it, being it, petting it. You stop. This is the way we can imagine that the South Node in Virgo works, and with the eclipse, I can't stop myself from saying this. Well, it's gonna be like explosive diarrhea moment with karma. I know I'm smiling, but it's not gonna be funny. I'm not gonna be laughing at the moment of the eclipse. Well, however it plays out in my life, that doesn't even matter, because something is gonna be out there big time. Well, on one hand, the planet Mercury is gonna be the disher out indirectly of this eclipse because it rules the sign of Virgo. So Mercury is gonna be words, communication, media, speaking about it, very active. Mercury is gonna speak about this eclipse big time and very significantly. So this week and all the period pre-March 14th is a preparation for that very, very powerful and potent eclipse. So remember, Mercury and Saturn are your friends, are your allies, are your co-conspirators in your Mars retrograde theme for you personally, whatever the roughly the past three, but even I would even say the past 4 months, really. What did they pinpoint in your life? What is the big psycho emotional feeling, your roots, where I belong to, theme in your life? Where is it going? What's happening? What's boiling in it? Or what is stale? What needs change, etc., etc. So Mercury and Saturn are your friends and allies in that, in doing something with that. But you might need to be a bit more patient because remember, Mercury will go retrograde, and at the same time, Venus will go retrograde as well. And that's also something that is big time happening this week, where Mars goes direct, Venus, Mars, the male principle, the active, Venus, the female principle, the passive, the bottom. Well, she goes backwards, direct. So we're gonna be feeling this, not just in a Martian way, but also in a Venusian way. And remember, this Venus retrograde and Mars have more in common than meets the eye, because Venus is in Mars's home sign of Aries. Mars is in a sign where Venus loves being in. Venus herself makes her way back into another sign she loves, adores being in. This to me says Venus has a lot of expectations from Mars. So Mars is in the sweaty situation. When the wife has Sky or replaced wife with the potential candidate, the crush, the whoever, even when they're not wife or husband yet, that special person with sky high expectations, and you know that you are either in trouble or it's not gonna be easy. This is how Mars will feel like, because Venus demands. Venus in Aries is the slutty Venus, right? So she wants real deal, quick, as easy as possible, and no BS. and she's going back to Pisces, where she is all BS, but the sacred kind. So she's going back into Pisces, well, on one hand, to add her influence to the eclipse, to this present Pisces season, to answer us big questions about romance, what love is for us personally. This is like the story of Inanna as she descended into the underworld. Of course, I use it, and many astrologers use it at any Venus retrograde. But if that's the best and most relevant example here, so I'm good. And Pisces is actually the underworld beyond the whale. It is basically the underworld as well. So very, very relevant here. So Inanna Venus love in the sign of Aries. She's taking that, what am I gonna do? Because she needs to solve a situation, just like in the legend, her sister was in grave, grave distress and pain in the underworld, in hell. She was the queen of hell. So her sorrow intoxicated even the surface world. And Inanna, it was her responsibility to go down and solve the situation. It really doesn't matter if it costs her her life, her responsibility. She needs to do what she needs to do, and that's exactly what she said, and that's very Aries like. It's her turn, her responsibility. She's doing what she has to do. And of course, she went down into the underworld. She on the 7 gates of hell, where at every gate she had to surrender a part of her robe, her jewelry, her scepters, everything. She could only step into the underworld fully naked, fully vulnerable, no goddess energy. She was just a easy prey, like everyone else in the underworld. Of course, there she suffered what she had to suffer, but in full, not knowledge really, because it was just a hope that some cosmic force will see her innocence, have an understanding, and resurrect her. And that's exactly what happened. And when she arose, retrograde, when she'll go direct, new clothes, new power, new her, new personality, new way of loving, new understanding about absolutely everything. Her hardship changed her forever. Now, this Venus retrograde, because it's going back to Pisces, from Aries to Pisces, it may not necessarily refer to a hardship that is drowning you in the present moment, but this might be a psycho-emotional hardship, a trauma, in love and romance, in something that broke you big time. Because when Venus will start going direct, she will ultimately meet Chiron. That's the moment of understanding, the healing. This is where Chiron is. So it's very, very important to understand what our own Venus, what our own Ishtar, what the goddess Ishtar inside of our inner cosmos, what is inner Ishtar in the. Let's not use fancy psychology. Let's just use the language of children, the way we love, what love in our heart is for us. The love within us has a personality, has a voice. It has a way of being that many times is simply autonomous of our mind, of our anything else. One would say the inner child, but the inner child in its elevated way, where the inner child is love itself. That's Venus, that's Ishtar within us. We need to be honest to it and acknowledge what it truly seeks from us. This is, in a nutshell, Venus retrograde. And many times for that, the hell, the underworld, is our own traumas, our own past, our own toxicity, our own envy, our own rigidity, our own me. But in Pisces, the me is not the type of people who assume it. the type of people who do the opposite of me, but then their me's inside of them become highly toxic. So this is where Pisces wants, especially with Saturn in it, for everything to be pure. And purity is a frequency. It is a state, not something that you can physically do or not something that the mind can do. Purity needs a certain level of pain, sacred pain, for it to be able to preserve itself, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's move on. On the 25th of February, we have a very powerful aspect where Mercury conjuncts Saturn. Reality check, right? A moment of truth. A moment of us acknowledging something. Remember that Mercury will go retrograde. This doesn't matter exactly right now, but this moment of grave honesty with the self, with something where we understand Mercury and Pisces, something psycho-emotional, what the divine wants from us, what our own inner being wants from us, what our own Saturn, the limitations, the self-imposed limitations, why we have them. Now we can see the sacredness within them. This is where, let me give you an example. There's a girl who has a beautiful voice, and oh boy, she can sing, but she can't face public eye. No matter what she does, no psychologist can help her, no one can help her. Of course, her dreams are broken, blah, blah, blah. And she gets a moment of small recognition. But for her, it's wow. Something like let's say a local festival. For a big, like for Lady Gaga, that's nothing. But for a broken dream girl, that's everything. That's genie in a bottle, just in a rare occasion. She goes, does it. Pisces. Half of her, wow, how wonderful. I always knew I could do that. Wow. The other, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that everything in me stopped me. And I had this inner blockage of not being in the spotlight. Because to the mature me, this is so vain. This is actually disgusting. Mercury conjunct Saturn, where sometimes when we are able to see the blessing in our limitations, and the reason why we cannot do what others can do so easily, that's a moment of such big elation when we quantum leap immediately. And it has to be honest, not just the mind figuring this is where, again, out of the mind into the heart or into the soul. Full knowing that even the heart is many times wrong and the soul can be just as poisonous, as toxic as the ego in certain circumstances and for some beings. So let's get to the star of the show, which is, of course, the new moon in the sign of Pisces that's taking place on the 28th of February 2025. So this part of the horoscope is the new moon in Pisces. I'm not going to edit a separate video about this. So why is this very important? Because on one hand, look at the Pisces planets. Look at the sign of Pisces. It's packed with planets. So yeah, look at the Pisces planets. We have Sun and Moon, the new moon phenomenon, Saturn, Mercury, North Node, Neptune. Neptune is the ruler. So this immediately is big and significant. The new moon squares Jupiter. Jupiter is the ancient ruler of the sign of Pisces. When Jupiter was the sole ruler of Pisces, Pisces was not considered as all that wonderful, magical unicorn energy, but rather the sorrowful spirit. So this is why Jupiter's presence and conversation is very, very important, because it is in Gemini. Understanding, wisdom, logic, your own natural common sense helps infinitely. But also at the same time, Jupiter with the new moon says, what you are creating, cooking up, dreaming up, feelings, healing. New moon is always a very powerful energy to heal, especially to eliminate things that simply must not no longer belong in our lives, as well as the classical planting the seeds of intention and stuff like that. But in Pisces, that's a dream. That's how you would wish for your psyche to develop, right? What spices, salt, pepper, everything nice, the sprinkles you want to add to your psyche to make yourself all that much deeper, magical, spiritual, influential in non-visible and non-material ways. So square with Jupiter gives us a sense of responsibility, not to make promises just because of dreams. Jupiter square gives the realism or punishes when we are way too crazy. The ruler of Gemini, Mercury, well, Mercury is, if I'm not mistaken, no, it's not, I'm mistaken, because Mercury will retrograde back to 26 degrees of Pisces, so it's not in shadow yet. However, it's so close to it, that shadow degree, that this to me really, really says, and Mercury is the disher out of what Jupiter needs to do. This to me really says that even if this energy comes to us in a confusing way, in a way that it's way too big, Jupiter expansive, or way too deep, way too surreal, it's a high, or it comes with a high, a real high, because, we will have a time to figure it out under the Mercury retrograde. This is what it says to me. But anyway, there's also other power players here in the sign of Pisces. Nessus, or the planetoid Gongkun, the Chinese water god, god of flooding, and I'm pretty sure there are other dwarf planets in the sign of Pisces, but now my mind is not working all that. Mercury, I'm a Gemini in the sign of Pisces, neither should it. So thank you for understanding. But the Sabian symbol of this 9 degrees of Pisces is an aviator in the clouds. This promises a lot. Just that, remember the square with Jupiter, it can be also exaggerated, inflated, way too good to be true. We need to make it true. With wisdom, with understanding, with logic, with rationale. But anyway, let's go back. An aviator's dream is to be in the clouds. He's doing it, making dreams reality. However, the aviator is not a fairy in the clouds. It is a human being who sacrificed all his life to be in, for that 5 minutes, for that hour, for that 3 hours, whatever, to be in the clouds. Work, sacrifice. Sound like Saturn? Well, he's there. He is there. Aviation Mercury, in a way, is there. Mercury, speaking about the devil Mercury, sextile Uranus, aviation, and things at sea, navigation at sea also. So this is a really powerful Sabian symbol, because it depicts the type of dream that we can achieve through sacrifice, through work, through logic, but through also believing in ourselves. Because an aviator 50% of why he got there is the dream, is Pisces, is the magic, is the faith. It is the dream of the heart. So, aviator. The not so nice side of the aviator is exactly that. Well, he'd better have a lot of Virgo energy in his chart, because if he doesn't, he gets his dream, but he can plunge to his death and be a disaster very, very quickly. In the eyes of the universe, his disaster is also 1,000,000,000% beneficial. It serves 10 billion purposes, but for him personally, if it could have been avoided, if you know what I mean, that's why, yeah. So sometimes getting the dream is actually the worst thing that could possibly happen. Again, square with Jupiter, right? The wisdom we need. Now, there's a trickiness to this new moon because there are two asteroids in the vicinity that really complicate things. One is Cassandra. Now, Cassandra is a tricky asteroid because sometimes she's false prophecy. What does that mean? Something must be in a certain way because logic dictates it, because it makes sense. You also feel it. Everything is aligned. It must be like, and it's not. And it blows your mind. It's like winning the lottery, but in an opposite way, where it's certain, it's sure. And the other example of Cassandra is when it's impossible. But reality, either through a direct prophecy or through, your mom saying something, someone's Freudian slip, something that you read, and you laugh it off. Impossible. Too good to be true. It will never happen to me in 1,000,000,000,000 years. Well, it happens. But Cassandra has another quality to it. Quid pro quo. If you sign the contract, you sign the contract. You must do your part. Or else. Or kindness, compassion, Pisces, magic, romance, the way you feel, but for something, everything for something, how you say, translate quid pro quo, something for something, or anyway, you get what I mean. So the new moon magic, well, you can imagine, for artists, for Piscean profile work people, personalities, family people. This is going to be a magical new moon and with full of power. But what can I say? The moon will trine Mars. Sun will trine Mars, but later on. Saturn still trines Mars. The ruler of Pisces Neptune is at home, conjunct the North Node. This dream is the dream, right? Because the ruler, the planet of dreams, conjunct the North Node. North Node is a lunar energy. So what our soul wants to live, what it needs to live the dream. It was never as clear as this because Mercury is conjunct it. So we must dream big time. And the other asteroid that complicates it is Hercules. Hercules, I don't know how to say it. I don't need to say anything about Hercules because that part is kind of obvious and no one's smiling. And this asteroid Hercules is getting closer and closer to his killer, Nessus. So not everything is as it seems. and on the world stage, don't believe anything of this new moon. This whole new moon phenomenon, however it will play out on the world stage, it's all fantasy, illusion, fata morgana, psychological chess game, etc., etc. Personally, it is our duty to make it magical and real and etc. But again, Hercules, it's not going to be easy. We're going to have a lot of help, right? Especially divine, but it's not going to be easy. So we really need to step up our game. I repeat, Mercury sextiling its higher octave Uranus. Natural, down-to-earth common sense, corroborated with sheer instinct, gut intelligence, corroborated with intuition, is much more powerful than any book, any teacher, any psychologist, any astrologer, any external individual. Mother Nature has this, GPS-wise. And if you don't have it figured out immediately, don't worry, Mercury retrograde. You'll get there. Then on the 1st of, enough is enough of this, on the 1st of March, Venus retrograde starts. Venus retrograde starts on the 14th of March, and I do believe she goes direct on the 17th of April, because Mercury goes retrograde on the 14th of March and goes direct on the 7th of April, where Venus goes retrograde on the 1st of March and until the 17th of April. So this is quite a powerful energy, as I said at the beginning of the horoscope, because Venus is, if Mars is the active principle, Venus is the female principle. Both are aggravated, both are highlighted, especially in the not so comfortable ways this week. So Venus will demand things from us. Venus will demand resolution, satisfaction, honesty, truth, confrontation, and she's preparing us exactly for this. Venus retrograde, the past, love, exes. But when I say love, it's not just people and romance and everything, especially in the sign of Aries. Even lower octaves of love are very much included here. Everything that is about love, because as I said, she's going back to her place of exaltation. So love is meaningful there, very much. And this can invoke the past marriages, past relationships, past friendships, past connections. This can invoke especially previous lives, previous existences, previous romances, resolution, closure that needs to take place. And I'm gonna bust your bubble now. Not in the sense that, let's me unite. No, in the sense that, well, what is past life anyway? It is in any way, shape, and form not relevant in this incarnation. So, in order for Venus to retrograde back into Aries, she needs to get rid of her craze. Past life is relevant only for certain people, only in certain circumstances. For everyone else, not relevant whatsoever. It's a big hindrance. We drank from the waters of Lethe for a reason, and Mnemosyne is not our friend. And we think it's the opposite way. In occultism, mystical circles, modern psychology, they're digging up the past aggressively, violently. If Akashic records and past lives and all of that are like the memory of the cosmos and the universe, would you like someone to dig in your brain? Would you like someone to intrude, invade, and dig things up just to prove that you can. We must stop this. Even better than, okay. I'm not gonna get into that. But this is what Venus retrograde is gonna past lives, but let's stop it. Stop it. Let the echo of that love stop and be irrelevant. Let you not be impressed by energies. Let you be impressed by the real. So Venus is wrapping up past lives, wrapping up past relationships, wrapping up things that should no longer delight you. The old romance is dead. Be ready for the new romance, which is a bit down to earth, slutty Venus. That's the new romance. Not living something in the brain, in the head. Something that is not going to be ever real and never going to work. This is, even though you might say, well, isn't Venus exalted in the sign of Cancer? Yes, but retrograde, she's going against Platonic. She doesn't like Platonic. She doesn't like make-believe. She doesn't like I pretend. Anything. May that be role play. May that be any fetishes which are pretend-based. Why? The instinct, the inner animal that is connected to nature wants real. And so, yes, Venus here will go very aggressively against fantasy, make-believe that is not rooted in nature, as in pornography. If for someone that takes the role of partnership, their Venus is gonna start puking it out in a bad way. They're gonna be a bit ill. But this is what I mean. You need to see what it does. For pornography addicts, this is a big detox Venus retrograde. Bye-bye. For those who are trapped in some kind of Saturn, dogmatism, in something that is only real in their minds, and they torture themselves with it. They keep themselves in rigid chastity or delude themselves with mystical cultures that is not their own. In order for spirituality to work for you, you need it to be in your genes one way or another. If it's not, it's only in the mind. You need some kind of connection, right? Genetic connection with the land, with the trees there, with the plants there. Your ancestors had to eat it. He'd eat the land a lot. If this is missing, it's only in the mind. It can be yours 50%. If you're greedy, you will not the culture will not enter. This is why what is in your genes and you can practice and resonate with it, that's your muscle. So things have to be real. This is why even chastity for people whose profile, biological and astrological profile goes against it, but the belief of the benefit it does, or someone brainwashed them, is so real to them that their instinct is repressed. I don't want to enumerate the consequences that my work alone, just me as an astrologer, saw in certain men's charts. Medical astrology wise, things get blocked big time, and you will ultimately need the knife, surgical knife, right? Be sure that what you practice is truly yours and embraceable to you. Because if not, right? So, my example, the very same thing that was extremely poisonous, toxic to one individual, to the other who's living the opposite extreme, might break them free a little bit. That, as in, it's all in your head. The restriction, the punishment is in your head. So this Venus retrograde is very much about this. So It's not smiley type, even though, again, the appearance of it, of Pisces and the past and the road. Okay, maybe very, very few souls will live the karmic connection, the childhood friendship that they never had the courage to live back then. But for everyone else, it's a big detox. Enough of the clouds, enough of the dreams, enough of that which is not real and cannot be real. The not real has to fuel a different part of your being. When it comes to wean us, it needs to be a bit more real than not, right? So yeah. And I think this kind of concludes my horoscope. So thank you everyone for listening and on the 1st of March, I have a presentation, a class that I do for Nadia at Synchronicity University. So I'm really nervous about it. So if you guys want to hear about the dwarf planets, I'm pretty sure she will put a video up about that very soon. So thank you everyone. Until next time. Bye for now.